I need to get a remote for my camera. Hello and welcome to The Healing Way. My name is Richard Clark, and on this video I'd like to talk more about mind. I keep thinking I've come to the end of these mind videos, and then I wake up and there's a load more stuff has come presumably from mind. It wants to reveal more about itself. Fine. Okay. The theory I'm putting forward is that, and this isn't proven, this is just how it seems to me, and please bear in mind I'm not a scientist, I don't think in scientific ways, I'm not trained as a scientist or a doctor or in any way like that. So this is just my layman's view, studying the healing methods that I've developed, how they work and how they affect people. But what it looks like is mind is composed of the four forces in the universe that affect matter, and what I've talked about in other videos. And it looks like mind is created by brain being the computer, mind being the monitor, if you like, the picture, it creates the pictures. And it's also, it seems like mind is coloured in, given characteristics by ego. Ego is usually seen in a negative way of being self-centred, self-absorbed, an egotistical person we talk about. But it seems that ego gives mind some important characteristics such as curiosity, desire to learn, a need to know. It's almost like it gives it substance. Now if brain does create mind from the energies that it receives that flow through the body, sorry, not energies, forces, then that's interesting, because I've always taken the view that forces, the electromagnetic force, gravity, the weak and strong nuclear effect, they influence or control matter. It's a one-way street. That's how I've always seen it. But if brain can create mind from forces, then it seems that matter can control these forces as well. It's not a one-way street. It goes two ways. So that's interesting. Now I have been observing mind being, I don't know if created is the right word, it's when I've done healings on people, the forces of the materials have flowed in to a person, and they've flowed up into the mind, and the mind has become, it's taken these forces, or at least these forces have been taken and they've been used to change the component part of the mind. The forces that the mind is made up of have been strengthened, have been reinvigorated, have been added to. This is probably the best word, reinvigorated. The forces that make up the mind have been reinvigorated. They then harmonise and come together. So all these forces, which are now much more vital, much more dynamic, it's like the old forces that made up the mind were worn out. We just had it. And then all these new forces come in, the mind re-establishes itself, and it's much, much more powerful, has much more abilities and insights. So that's quite interesting. So you get a mind that is recovered or recovering. So what is the function of mind, and what is the function of mind when it's working 100%? Because I wonder if many of us have ever had a mind that is working at 100%. Mostly our minds seem to be worn out. The component forces seem to be worn out, have lost their vitality. Okay, so let's look at this mind and this very efficient mind as it is now, as it will become. What it does if you can say that invention is the discovery of existing principle, right? If you can say that the invention has always been there in principle. The principle of the car engine was always there, has always been there forever. But at a certain point in time, people start discovering it. So they've discovered the principle of the thing. And that, I think, is what the mind does. It discovers the principle of new things, creation. It uncovers the new things on a much more, on a different level. It's not on a material level. It's not even on a energy level. It's gone beyond energy in the way that force and effect has gone beyond energy. The new comes out of somewhere that is beyond energy. Let's put it that way. But the mind can connect to that place. So all new things exist in principle. The mind can connect to where these things are. And I think that's why the brain has created the mind. The brain is the computer. It's created the mind to explore places it cannot explore, but it wants to know about. It wants to receive information from those places. It wants knowledge. The brain's function seems to be to expand its knowledge base, to understand things in terms of knowledge better. And there's been a disconnection between brain and mind, in my view. This is why, in recent decades probably, there has been this massive overemphasis on brain. Brain is intellect, brain is the thinking processes, and this is what is functioning in society. It's in the West anyway, I can't speak for other countries, but where I live in the UK and probably Europe, America, it is all about brain and thought. And there's been this disconnection between brain and mind being the creative side, the creative process, where the new comes from. There's very little new being put into society now. It is nearly always the extension of existing principles. Very little comes along that's new. And when something new comes along, nobody understands it. If it's really completely new, you will have a very hard time getting it over. Believe me, I know. My healing methods. But that doesn't matter. If it's meant to be, it will be. Yeah, so brain creates mind so that it's possible to explore this other place where the new is. And the new comes into the mind as information. It's very much like a television, the way television works. There's a place that broadcasts the information. The television receives the information, changes it into something we can understand, pictures and sound. And it's very similar to that. The mind absorbs the information. Information is probably the wrong word. There is something that's unknown to us, a mechanism of information exchange that doesn't involve movement. There is no, in this other place, there is no movement because there is no energy. There are simply forces that interact. And these forces have effects. They are powers. I wouldn't say it's beyond our comprehension, it's probably beyond our present day knowledge. But because there is no movement of energy between this other place where everything is new and creation comes from, then it's not possible to see the link. I can only perceive a certain amount. I can only perceive energies, some forces. I can perceive electromagnetic force. I can perceive energy radiating. I can't perceive gravity. you know. I'm oblivious to gravity, other than what everybody knows, that it gives us weight and holds us on the planet. But we all perceive forces in a way because the sun radiates heat and light. We perceive that. But that isn't energy. Anyway, there isn't a direct link that I can see between the new place and the mind, although the mind will receive from the new place. The connection, the mechanism, I don't know how it works. Mind receives and it uncovers, it interprets, it changes what it receives. What it receives is the new, an existing principle that is not deducible in the real world. You couldn't get to this by deduction. You couldn't get to it. It's like, say, healing with energy step 1, using washing liquid to draw out toxic energy from people. You can't deduce that. You know, when I tell people about this, they just look at me blank. It's just like, what? Which is fine. But you cannot, the point I'm making is you can't deduce it. You can only, it comes to you through a process. It's out there, it exists, it's just a question of connecting to it. So to be more creative, to be really creative, and I'm not talking about making statues or artwork or something like that, which is a type of creation. I'm talking about something that is totally, totally new. It's outside of our experience. It cannot be got to by extending knowledge. It will never be found unless the mind receives it. Now, interestingly enough, the mind receives things, interprets them and passes them on to brain. So it's very similar to a television. Brain is like the viewer at the television, watches what's coming through, and then you watch something, you understand it. So from this understanding comes action. The brain then does things in the physical world. The brain is physical, so it's probably its use is for working in the physical world. Now, interestingly enough, it seems again it's a two-way street. I've fallen into the trap of thinking these things only work one way. Forces affect matter, but it seems to me that matter affects forces. I don't know if this is part of physics, if physics, people who study physics understand this, or it's known. I don't know. I'm not a scientist, but that's how it seems to me. It's a two-way street. So through mind, we can explore this higher place. We can look into the higher place. Higher in the sense that it's not down here. It is more refined, more of a it's hard to explain something that has no substance, has no reality, what is real but is not actual. Well, you can't point to it. You can only get to it by this kind of video, by saying, well, it's this, this, this and this. But the point is, hopefully, people as their minds recover will become more creative and be more open to what comes through from this other place. And there will be a greater understanding of these things. We're not a million miles from this. It's just a case of making things within us better or stronger or more able, which is what the regeneration of the forces within us should do. I believe there are more forces. I don't think there are just this four. I don't think mind can be counted as a fifth force or effect. It is only a construct of the other four. There's nothing new in it. You cannot point to it and say it has new attributes, new abilities, or whatever. It hasn't. It is the sum of its parts. It doesn't seem to be greater than the sum of its parts. Okay, well, maybe this is the last one on Mind, or maybe I'll be back tomorrow with another one. Who knows? We'll see what happens. But if you've got this far, I hope you find it interesting, and thank you very much. Thank you.